bring up your next speaker. That's going to be the wonderful, magnificent Chris James.
If you talk about how much you hate your fat, your body has been working all this time to keep you alive. I don't think anybody in my circle understands impossible. All right. Let me know you can hear me and see me, and we are going to rock out, y'all. I apologize for the delay. I was here, but I was on a very important call. One of my clients, one of our family members, is dealing with cancer, and it's a very, it's not a pretty cancer. So we've been working together for the past, I don't know, maybe a month or so. Yeah, it's been about a month now, and I get updates probably weekly, and yeah, we were kind of going over the last scare, which when it comes to first of all, when it comes to cancer, just because of the nature of the disease, there's a lot of energy around it. We have the propaganda from the news outlets and the government telling us that we should fight cancer, and of course, we've probably all had some sort of interaction with a family member, a friend, or even personally as it relates to cancer. One of my old ex-girlfriends told me that she went to the doctor for her yearly, and they told her that she had pre-cancer cells, which at the time I was just like, what is that? Like pre-cancer. But even though I didn't think it was anything that was serious, it just be that you hear that word and it just scares you. So you have a lot of energy surrounding that. And I try to do when I try to do my best to preface people's experience when they're detoxing and they're looking to resolve something like cancer. I always try to do my best to make sure they understand kind of the ebbs and flows of that process, because okay, D, I don't think I knew that. I when when people go through that process, it's just high energy. You can look at it as negative or positive, but it's high energy. So kind of having a roadmap of how that's going to flow, I think helps. But I think what I'm realizing is maybe I should probably write it down, because we do our consultations, and there's many things I've said. I sent him the a recording of the original consultation, but I think maybe just writing it out and just making sure that he understands. But we had a really productive conversation, and it kind of tied into what we were talking about last night um, on our challenge call. When you start to get into those longer fasts, like if you guys have ever done like going past 21 days, heading towards 30 days, or if you've gotten to 30 days and you're heading to 40 days, those longer fasts do present different detox symptoms and unique experiences. I mean, 21 days is definitely a long fast, but it's not the end all. It's not the climax. Your body still will continue to do more work moving past that 30-day mark, and it's usually pretty unique. The experience is usually unique. One of the things that you can see is the usually we develop a synthetic coating, or it coats our intestinal tract, and usually around those 30-day fasts, you'll start to see that stuff break up and start coming out. 30 to 40 days, you'll start seeing that stuff breaking up and coming out. So you'll have really, really crazy bowel movements. And the interesting thing about it is if you're not well studied on fasting, it'll probably freak you out because you're just like, bro, what is this coming out of me? But for me personally, I was very intrigued by all of that type of stuff because I was kind of expecting it and I was like looking forward to it. And one of the things that I did early on in my fasting journey is I taught myself to appreciate detox symptoms, maybe even to a detriment to my own learning and growth, because I associated detox symptoms with healing, which you can kind of do that. But as I've kind of matured in this journey, I've learned that yes, if you're experiencing harsh detox symptoms, it is your body healing, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? And that's one of the things that Sasha would talk about, as it relates to understanding the endocrine system and the liver and the lymphatic system. And when you understand how the body heals and you can upregulate the different systems and organs that are associated with improving your defenses, improving your elimination, then you don't have those harsh detox symptoms. And honestly, that's better. Now I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Um, when I very first started drinking, I never drank until I was probably like, well, I was 18 when I had my first drink. It was Pirate Bay rum, so nothing crazy. But then when I got to college, I started drinking for real. And I always had a saying, I want to be able to taste my drink. So I kind of have this, this is a me thing. I have this kind of personality where it's like, if I'm fasting and I don't feel anything, it's like, is it working? Is it doing anything? I know when I feel bad. I know when things are going crazy. I know it's working. I can taste my drink. But I'm certainly getting away from that now, and it's just a better process. If people can fast and fast for long durations of time and have limited detox and we'll say managed detox symptoms, then I think that's best. So um, that's what I was doing, and I'll just tell you all, we're seeing some great progress. Nothing that I can necessarily report yet, but what I'll say is this: when that time comes, as long as he's consistent and we continue to work together, when that time comes, you guys will definitely know. And we've had some people who have dealt with different types of cancers, part of the group, and talk about resolving it. So that's exciting. All right, so today I wanted to talk. I just took my trip back home. So since this is the Pam group, I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about my experience, and um I think maybe I don't know. I'm just gonna tell you about my experience going back and to my grandmother's funeral service and everything like that. For those who don't know, my grandmother, 94 years old, passed on December 25th on Christmas. My mom actually reached out to me the day before. It was literally the night before, and had explained to me that she had stopped drinking, she had stopped eating. She I think she had ended up falling at some point in time. So she was in the bed, and they had a nurse that was kind of monitoring her. And the nurse was like, hey, she's ready to transition. Like the nurse was just like, these are signs that she's ready to transition. So my mom called me because she wanted to kind of prepare me. And I'll say that that was probably the most helpful thing ever. Like that was, when things don't just happen and you get blindsided, it's extremely helpful to kind of have an idea of what's going. And then my mom literally called me the next morning, to let me know that she had passed. So that helped a lot. But then, and she's 94. So I'm like, she got to live. When we look at modern times, she got to live a very long life. My grandmother, she wasn't always a health person. For those who, I don't know if you guys know the story. I mean, most of you guys probably know the story, but she probably switched her health habits at the age of around 64. So in a lot of people's minds, she was already, a senior citizen, an older lady. People really don't change their habits that late in life, but she did. And by the way, it improved her looks tremendously too. Like my grandmother, she was very pretty when she was younger. And then she had 9 babies, and they took a toll on her body. Actually, she ended up having 10. One passed away, I think, at birth. And whatever else happened, poor eating habits, stress, whatever, she started putting on a lot of weight. She was quite unhealthy. She also dealt with either PCOS or endometriosis. I'm not sure, maybe one or the other, both. I don't know. She very likely had fibroids. She never told me that she had diabetes, but I'm sure that she suffered from some of the symptoms, if not full-blown diabetes. And so she decided to change her health because she wasn't well. She was ill. And that decision changed my life for sure, as well as many other people's lives, countless lives. And I wanted to tell that story to you all, right? So I did this tribute on YouTube, but that just trying to trying to organize that story, like I kept getting choked up. I could not. And I've been working on understanding death better. I think that one of the issues that we deal with is that we make death something that it's not. And I haven't completely come to a conclusion on what death actually is. But I just right now I'm just at a point where it's just a transition. It's just simply going from one dimension to another. It's not that this person's energy has been extinguished forever, which is how it feels. And so anyway, I kept getting choked up, but I did get through that call, and that was cool. So I'll be honest, I didn't really want to go to her funeral. I don't like funerals. I don't think this is just my personal opinion. I don't think the way that we celebrate people who have passed is proper. I think that um, traditional funeral is that whole idea of mourning and everything. I just don't. It just doesn't resonate with me. I know other cultures do a celebration of life and things of that nature, and that would resonate with me more. But the main reason I didn't really want to go is because I didn't want to interact with my family too much. And the reason why is because I feel like the only time we get together is when there's like a big thing that happens, whether it's a good big thing or a bad big thing. It's only when big things happen that we interact, and it happens every single time. And every time we get together, I try to, well, between me and some of my other siblings, we try to create some energy around like staying connected. And it always sounds real good, but it never happens. And we have there's very specific reasons why our family is so segmented that way. And I just don't like it. I don't like it. It feels fake to me. It feels like, you know, there's a couple of us that really want to make this happen. There's a couple that just will say, "Yeah, we'll do it." And then but it just never happens, right? I don't like that environment. But I decided to go anyway because I wanted to support my mom, and she definitely needed it. And so we're at the funeral service, and I refused to see my grandmother embalmed and all made up and all that type of stuff. I don't do that. I saw my grandfather that way, and that was probably the last time I saw a dead body that way, because that's not them. They don't look exactly right. I just didn't. I wanted my last memory of her to be when she was alive, and how she was. So we're sitting there, and I'm not really familiar with funeral services, honestly, because I've only been to two, well, three now. And there's a lot of people who are not part of the family talking. You got the pastor talking, you've got another pastor talking. She went to two different churches, and then there's like a few of her friends came up and talked, and that was cool because you get to hear about some of the stuff that you just never would know. Apparently, she was a disco ball. I think that's what y'all called it. Is that what y'all did? Y'all call it disco ball, or did you just call it disco dancing? But she would go disco dancing, and we always wondered, like, where did our grandmother get these dance moves from? Because she would just bust out dancing. but she never danced. Like we never saw her dance. But then like some music would get going and as she started aging, she would just start busting out dancing. And so we finally found out that her and her friend, when they were much younger, used to sneak out and go disco dancing. So anyway, I was contemplating speaking at the engagement because I could tell that if I started speaking, I was going to kind of like break down, and I didn't really want to like enhance the sadness that I felt or whatever maybe what other people were feeling. I didn't want to enhance that. Like if I went and spoke, I wanted to speak from a place of joy and celebration. And that's really where my hesitancy came from. Because once again, I am looking to change the narrative on how we interact with funerals and death and things of that nature. But it got to a point where my aunt, who was her daughter, obviously, she was able to speak, and her message was more somber, but I was proud of her for being able to get through that because I think that's probably one of the most difficult things that a person has to do. And then my brother went up because they've been asking him to sing. My brother, I don't know if you guys know, but my brother is a very talented recording singing artist, and um, they've been asking him to sing, and he just in general doesn't like singing at funerals just because it's difficult for him to kind of hold it together, but even more so when his grandmother, right? Like he just really didn't want to do it, but he said if he feels like he could do it, he'll do it. So after my aunt spoke, my brother spoke, and well, he didn't really speak, he sung. That's really what he did. He didn't really speak. But he didn't speak, and I was just like, man, I really want people to have a vision or have a picture of my grandmother from a point of view that just really, really positive, and like everything people said was positive, but I just want them to have a different view. So I was like, I have to go up and speak because nobody else is going to. So I did, and I told a story. My She was one of those people that was she was not a talker. Like she just was not a talker. She was a doer. She was a doer. Like if you came to her and you said you wanted to do XYZ, right? You wanted to start a business. She would give you a job to do to help you start your business. Like she always supported me and my ideas and things I wanted to do. Like I wanted to cut grass, rake leaves, or whatever. She would help me get my materials. She would give me little jobs. She would help me build up my money. And then I also remember whenever it was my birthday, when I was younger, she was the only person consistently, I'll say, that would send me a birthday card with money in it. That was her thing. I had another grandmother that would, give me money as well. I think maybe that's just a grandmother thing, I guess. But this one was very consistent with it. And I was always grateful for literally how she put her money where her mouth was. Like I just always was grateful for that. She was never stingy about that type of stuff. And ultimately, where my story got to was when I started talking about how she transitioned her diet and how she changed what we ate and how that impacted me and that is really I don't know. Like, I just don't know if a healthy alternative would be here if it weren't for her impact. So that's kind of where like I had to take a break from the little speech because I kind of started getting caught up. And but ultimately things went really well. Like people, I threw some jokes in there and I think I just lightened the mood for everybody. Now I'm telling you guys this story, and I think I mentioned this last night. I'm telling you this story because of what happened after I spoke. And I had a lot of anxiety going up speaking, as I mentioned earlier. I didn't want to make things worse or, intensify people's emotions. But after I had, spoke, it was just like a burden that was just lifted. I don't know, it just felt so good. And I literally haven't cried since then. I haven't, It was like something I needed to do, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that I gave myself to do that. But I think sometimes as we kind of look at our own personal health and wellness journey, there's something that's like that we have high anxiety about. It's so interesting how when it comes to like losing weight or reversing disease, maybe you got a tumor or something like that, and you want to successfully reverse it without having to worry about like traditional methods and all that type of stuff. But then there's a fear that you have around it, and it could be because you're like, okay, this is the best knowledge that I know to deal with this naturally, and if it fails, what will I do? So there's maybe some anxiety and some fear around that. But the reality is you don't know until you really give it your best effort. And you guys can apply this to whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish. If you look deep down, you might find that you've been holding yourself back for one reason or another. And this is important to understand, like, where you're like, if you have negative self-talk, it's really important to like identify that. Where are you holding yourself back? Because oftentimes we start fasting, we start doing something, we put energy towards something good. There is a balancing effect where we have like these negative thoughts or negative things start happening, and it's kind of to be expected because that's just the way the world works. There's a balancing that happens, so whether you put energy towards bad things or good things, the opposite will also happen because things have to stay balanced, and we just need to know that. We need to understand that and kind of expect it. It's like managing expectations. When you start putting your energy towards something positive, it's not as if it's always going to be like just smooth and frictionless. Like things are going to quote unquote go wrong. But I think it's important to reframe like going wrong. Like, what does that really mean? And going wrong is not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just a natural part of the process, you know? Like John had mentioned last night on a call that he had mentioned going through a crucible. Like when you have when you have a metal, you put it in a crucible to separate the pure metal from the impurities, and that is something that has to happen. And we do that. We go through that at multiple times in our lives, but the reality is we got to go through that crucible. We have to in order to separate the impurities. So you have to have a painful experience, if you want to call it that, or what a negative experience sometimes in order to remove the impurities. I know that for me personally, I adopted the idea years ago. I was probably 18. I adopted the idea that whatever I go through in life is just God preparing me for the things that I claim that I want out of life. Like that was just my proclamation. I'm like, if I can see the negative that happens in my life as preparation or kind of going through that crucible to hone me and make me stronger and make me more pure so that I can reach those levels that I have claimed that I want to reach, then I can never really be upset at what I experience. I can never, because it's all for the greater goal that I have set out to do. And I think sometimes we make goals, we say we're going to do things, and we don't think about the balancing that has to happen or the quote unquote negative side that has to take place in order for us to reach that level of success. Like when you look at highly successful people, nobody has gotten there easily. It's just not, that's just not the story. This is not how it works, you know? And the easy life is usually the one that people don't want. Where you get up every day leisurely and you just don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about growth or expansion. You don't have to worry about taking care of, you don't have many responsibilities, if any at all. You just kind of like exist. And I think that happens sometimes in the minds of our homeless population where they just exist. And I've through other people who counsel homeless or just interact with homeless, I've heard stories of them saying that they enjoy their life being homeless. They don't have any responsibilities. They're just kind of existing. And I think that's okay for people who want that. Like if you're okay with that, I don't see a problem. We all get to choose how we want to live our life. It's just not me. That's just not my desire. I desire more. I desire everything that was promised to me out of life. So because of that, there's trials and tribulations. There's things you got to go through, you know. But this whole experience just kind of opened up my eyes to that fact. And I did talk to a family member, as I mentioned, once again on the 21-day call. I don't know how many of you all are on the 21-day challenge, but um, one of my family members has been struggling with, well, first of all, they're struggling with their health 100%, 100%, you know, but they're also struggling with their mentality and not being successful in life in different areas. And they wanted to kind of pick my brain about how they could go about rectifying this. And at the end of the day, I was like, it's crazy. You already have all the tools, no different from you all. You guys have all the tools available to you. Even if there's something that you haven't necessarily been made aware of as far as a tool that you're going to need or want to use, you still have access to it right now. There's nothing that we do or learn that we didn't already know. It's really just about remembering. So like when we say, "Oh, that resonates with me," that's a knowing. Like that vibration, that resonance frequency, what that actually is it's a knowing. That's why it resonates with you. When we talk about resonance frequencies, there's a natural frequency that we vibrate at. Okay. So when someone speaks about something or you experience something that resonates with you, it's resonating with the natural frequency that you vibrate at. You were born that way. Meaning if it's knowledge or wisdom or an experience, you've already had it. You already are aware of it. And it's really just you remembering it. So we have to learn how to be more intuitive. And I think that the healing process does help us become more intuitive. Like there's a reason why when you look at whether it's the Bible or other ancient texts, there's a reason why you see fast and pray. That's not just a biblical thing. It's not a biblical principle. It's just an ancient principle. When you fast and pray, you're able to um, pick up on resonance frequency more easily, more seamlessly, and it allows you to navigate this life more efficiently, right? So you could use it in many different instances. And if you focus your energy on a particular subject, topic, or whatever, when you fast and you're in that meditative state or you're in that state of prayer, you will start to receive answers that you didn't know you knew. And that's kind of like the way it works. Okay. So for me personally, when I was going through this process initially, and I was leaning on this idea of fasting and praying, there was so much revelation that was given to me. I learned so much, not nearly as much as this out there to be learned, but I learned so much. And I wasn't reading a book. I was just observing nature, being in nature. I was being with my thoughts, and information was just simply coming to me, and so you guys, everybody has that ability. So when you guys are doing your fasting, especially your long-term fasting, because it becomes more sensitive then, but you should do it in general just as a practice, you know do that idea of fasting and praying. Do it, well, once again, whether it's praying, meditating, or just going into a quiet space, and allow yourself those lessons that nature has to teach you. Our DNA is encoded with information. Everything is information, and you have the knowledge that is passed down to you from your parents, your great grandparents, and so on and so forth. So you're far more knowledgeable. You have far more experiences than you have personally experienced. It's just really about how do you access that knowledge base. Yeah. So I see you guys said it was disco. It's called disco dancing. All right. I wonder when they stopped disco dancing. I bet they probably still do disco dancing, huh? I'm just gonna check out y'all's. Your grandmother's story is inspiring, making positive changes later in life still worth it. Yeah, you're welcome. I think it is important to understand that it's never too late. I know some of you all are, 60 plus, and you might, some people battle with, is it worth it? Is it even? Yeah, it definitely is. Like if I were to tell you that at this point in time you can make these changes, and if you're consistent with it and you kind of like develop that lifestyle, that you'll be able to live to nearly 100 years old, like I personally think that's good motivation. you know if the average person in America is dying at, I guess like 74, 75, then to get an extra almost 25 years, that's substantial. I mean, 25 years. Like, I think women on average die at 76 and men die at 72 or 74 in America. I think that's the numbers. And it's crazy. Like, that's insane. That's insane to think that there's other people that are living an additional 30, 25 to 30 years. Like, anyway, I just, that in my opinion is very valuable and well worth the changes. And by the way, like, it's not like my grandmother made these changes and was an absolute perfectionist, but she did go hard. Like, one of the things we all kind of laughed about was the barley green. She went very hard on barley green. My little cousin was talking about he missed barley green because she would put barley green in his apple juice, and I guess he got accustomed to it. And he said, "Man, no, seriously, like I miss drinking that." So I'm like, "Okay," but she never gave me barley green with apple juice because I was much older. So my interaction was different, but she would do her barley green and she would do her carrot juice, and she would juice, do her different salads and stuff like that. I do not think she ever stopped eating meat per se, but you know, she ate way less, and she was obese. When I was younger, she was obese, and she dropped a lot of weight. She didn't exercise. She didn't go to the gym. Like, every once in a while, we'll catch her doing some double dutch, but she didn't start doing the double dutch really until after she started getting healthy and losing that weight, and then she was able to do it again. And that was a thing that her and her daughters would do. They would jump rope. That was like their thing. But I watched her um, get healthier and essentially beautify. Like, she became more beautiful as she aged, which I thought was interesting. And that, so all of that is available to us. And if you're younger, it's even better. You get to start earlier. you know like, I look forward to, look, I'm not trying to fast forward. So understand this. But when we get to that place where I'm 50 years old and people are like, what, you're 50? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm 50, and I look like I'm in my 30s. Like, I look forward to that. Because, number one, it's part of my goal, but number two, it'll show people what's possible. She showed me what was possible by sticking to, your healthy lifestyle. And fortunately, I was able to catch on to it much earlier in life, basically at half the age that she was. And so I should be able to double my outcomes. So I'm just excited about that. I think the important thing to remember as it relates to that is we are all someone's somebody. You know what I mean? Like, everybody is someone's somebody, and we all have the ability to impact those around us in a way that is permanent and positive. One of the elders came up to me after the service because, once again, I got quite a bit of feedback on my speech, and they were like, Chris, you're hearing your testimony about your grandmother and stuff made me think I got to really step it up. This is someone who's probably in their late 60s, maybe mid 70s, and so they're a grandmother. And they're just like, the things you said about her, like, basically I want my grandchildren to be able to say those things about me. And I'm sure she's a great grandmother. You know, people, we tend to judge ourselves harshly. You really don't know the impact that you have on people. But I thought that was amazing because as you all know, one of the things that I want to do is inspire you all to increase your lifespan and increase your quality of living so that you can have that impact on those that come after you, and even if it's somebody you work with. Like, could you imagine how many people my grandmother probably impacted that she just worked with, and she just was working with them, and she was, having that conversation about health and wellness and lifestyle change, and she impacted someone's life in a similar manner that she did mine, and they went off, and that had an impact. So you're gonna have impact on people's lives that you'll never know. And I mean, even me personally, my brother John, as you all know, John came to me one day, probably about maybe 10 years ago, and he was just like, "Chris, you just have no idea how how I look up to you, like the impact that you've had on me, and just watching how you move and watching what you've been able to accomplish." And I'm just like, "What?" Like, I literally would have never known. I never would have known that. Like, our relationship and the way that we interacted and the discussions we had, I don't know. I just got, maybe you could say I took them for granted, I guess. I don't know. Like, I just didn't think that I was having that type of impact on him. So sometimes you have an impact on people that you interact with regularly and you don't think you're doing anything special. But that's the beautiful thing about perspective. It's interesting. Every single person in your life sees you differently. Everybody in your life, depending on their perspective, have a different viewpoint of you. So you exist in hundreds of different forms, and then you exist in a completely different form in your head. And that the way you view yourself and the way you experience yourself is nothing like the way anybody else does. And that's just an interesting thing, And we're so hard on ourselves. We criticize ourselves so harshly, and the reality is, um, no one else sees us that way. Nobody else sees us that way. So I just want you all to kind of be cognizant of what it is that you might be holding on to that's holding you back, what limiting beliefs that you have. So my advice to my family member was, look at, explore what might, these limiting beliefs. Like, literally just talk yourself through it. You want to, let's say you want to, you know, um, do like a women's help class group or whatever. What is it about that? What are you afraid of there? Well, I'm afraid that uh maybe that I'll become, people depend on me. Like, I'll build a group or audience, people will start to depend on me, and then I won't follow through. I'll let them down. And it's like, okay, if that's the fear, then you also have to weigh the other side of it, right? What if you don't let them down? What if you do exactly what you said you're going to do, and you encourage people, and through you encouraging and helping other people, you encourage and help yourself, but also you inspire someone to become greater than they would have been without this interaction? What if that, you know? And the reality is, you don't know unless you do. But I'll tell you one thing that is true: if you don't do, you won't know, and you will always fail. Like, whatever goal you guys have in mind, if you don't do, you won't know, and you will always fail. That's the guarantee. So the fear of failing, it's interesting that the fear of failing will sometimes stop us from doing, but not doing will always cause us to fail. And I don't understand why that eludes people, but it's true. When you don't do, you always fail. So if the fear of failure is what's stopping you, then you have to, you by that logic, you have to do, because that's the only choice you have for success. You know, Something that surprised me is when they tell movie like stories through movies and film and stuff, they start with the end in mind. And I don't know if all um writers do this or if all genres of production does this, but they start with the end in mind. And it's interesting, like when you do that, when you focus on, okay, what are the outcomes I ultimately want, then the all the middle parts just kind of fill themselves in. And all you have to do is start with the end in mind. So when I started my health journey, I said, okay, and I'm gonna tell y'all this, and I know some of y'all aren't gonna agree with this, but I'm gonna tell it to you anyway. I said, okay, I want to live to be 150 years old, minimum. But I don't want any old 150 years. I want a high quality of living. I want mobility. I want health. I want memory. I don't want to live to be that long and not be able to enjoy it. Like it's pointless. I want to be able to enjoy it because a lot of people associate old age with, lack of mobility, disease. One of the things the doctors just could not get over was the fact that at my grandmother's age, she was on no medication. They just simply could not get over it. Every time she went to the doctor for a checkup or something, they do her blood work or whatever testing they do, and they would ask, "So she's not on any medication?" We at this point in time in our society, we just think over a certain age you're going to be on medication. Well, why? Because we continue to degrade our body and our system through toxic eating habits. That's probably the main driving force for our disease. Of course, there's other reasons, but if I had to put a number on it, probably like 90% or more of our disease, especially as we age, and it relates to, those quote unquote age related diseases. It comes from poor diet. It comes from poor understanding of proper nutrition, and a lot of that comes from the manipulation through the government. The government has propagandized us. They have led us to believe something that's not true. Can you talk about refeeding after 30-day juice fast? So um the thing about it, okay, so with a 30-day juice fast, it's your body's going to be more sensitive than you would be if you did like some type of alternate day juice fasting schedule or some type of juice fasting cycle. Juice fasting in general, your body doesn't become nearly as sensitive as it does with water fasting or, dry fasting, of course. So you have a lot more leeway, but because you're doing a 30-day juice fast, your body does become more sensitive. It becomes acclimated to digesting juice. And so essentially what you have to do is just basically ease your body back into consuming hard food, or we really look at like more like density of food. So the real big the difference between a 30-day water fast and a 30-day juice fast is really how quickly you can reintegrate the more dense foods. You're still going to take the same process as far as, what you eat first and what you kind of start eating last, but you can move along through that process a little bit more quickly. So 7 days is what your refeed period would look like, and then your first couple of days, so like you're going to break your juice fast with like some juicy fruit. I recommend it to be raw. N- um and the reason why I say juicy fruit is because it needs to be raw. And if you do vegetables of any kind, I do recommend that you cook them, for digestive purposes. One thing that we have to keep in mind is, especially if we're going from like a standard diet to like juicing, is you may not have the microorganisms to break down raw vegetables, and they might give you some indigestion or bloating or something of that nature. So it's got to be we have to be in tuned with our body and pay attention and not just arbitrarily follow any particular strategy. make sure that you're paying attention to the feedback your body is giving you, because most people think, okay, fruits and vegetables, no problem. But raw fruits and vegetables need to be looked at almost individually. This is why I like mono fasting, because you could like eat one thing and see how your body responds and you can learn. But you want to give your body a chance to um, nourish the microbiome and transition you into eating like raw vegetables and stuff. So anyway, so we start with fruit, and I would just say day one you could do raw fruit. That's the first thing you're going to eat, and then later on in the evening, if you want to have like some steamed vegetables, you could do that, broccoli and things of that nature. Or if you want to do leafy greens, you could do leafy greens, especially going into day two. You could have your leafy greens, steamed vegetables, maybe like broths. I would recommend like a vegetable broth, something of that nature. Uh, and then, of course, you can start having your cooked fruits and vegetables day two as well. But I just want you to do raw day one. And then on day three, you can have like your like more like raw salads, and you know what I mean, you don't have to worry about steaming your vegetables as much. Day three, you can kind of start having that more dense stuff. But what I would say is keep it to a minimum. Like, don't eat a ton of it. I know sometimes we can become ravenous when we start eating again, but you should be okay. But if you do, just don't eat a whole bunch of like uncooked vegetable and stuff like that, because it could make you back you up and just, you know, give you problems that you wouldn't expect. And then on by day four, you can start having like your grains. I recommend natural grains. So, you know, quinoa or like wild rice, you know, kamut and things of that nature. Once again, you just want to make sure that you're monitoring how your body is interacting with these foods. So give yourself a small portion size, test the waters, see how you respond to it. The other thing too, I want you all to do, make sure coming off 30 days of fasting, make sure that you're monitoring your bowel movements, because when you come off a 30-day juice fast like that, you should be very clean and you should see everything that you consume come out. Okay. So monitor your bowel movements. Make sure, like, when I came off of my I don't know, it's like maybe like a 2 week fast, water fast. When I would have a bowel movement, like if I ate one avocado, I'd have a bowel movement that seemed bigger than what it should be. Like it was just so big for just having one avocado. So your bowel movement should seem bigger than what you probably expect if this is new for you. Um, and also you could kind of feel when you eliminate completely versus when there's still a little something left in there, right? Start getting more in tune with that feeling. This is a great time to do that, because typically we're so backed up, we're so bogged down, we can't really tell. And so this is an opportunity for you to learn your body a little better, and then this will be a tool that you could use as you know, get back into your regular lifestyle, whatever that kind of looks like. And you'll know, okay, I'm overeating, or I don't really need to eat anything because I'm still backed up from what I ate yesterday. And these kind of realizations will help you maintain, right? So day five, you could start doing more of the processed stuff. So for example, we could look at those same natural grains, and now you could start doing like pasta and bread and, you know, things of that nature. I do recommend making it from scratch, because you know, I mean, if you're gonna make it from scratch, you pretty much have no preservatives in it. You don't have any stabilizers in it. You know, you don't have any artificial flavors or colors or anything in it. And so you're gonna get a pure thing, and that should digest really well. And for those of you who think that bread is the enemy, like bread is the devil, you can't have bread, this might be an eye opener for you. Where if you come off of a long fast like that and you're really well cleaned, you're processing food well, you're making bread from a natural grain at home from scratch, the way you digest it, you might find that you digest it really well and you don't have problems with bread. A lot of people will go from America to different countries and they'll eat bread and pasta and all that stuff and they'll lose weight. I literally just was having a conversation about this the other day. It's extremely common that that happens because the processing of the food is different. The ingredients used are different. Like the America in our food, we use vastly different ingredients than other countries. But you all can replicate those experiences in your home if you just make your stuff from scratch. Okay. So that's day 5. On day 6, you could start integrating your meat products. And I want to make sure to highlight that we should be looking at portion control. So, like, 4 ounces is the recommended amount of meat per day by one of the alphabet companies that the government has. I don't know who it was, American Heart Association, diabetes. I don't remember. But one of them recommends 4 ounces a day of meat. We eat 4 ounces in one sitting, one bite. So we overeat meat. Even if you are eating meat, we overeat it, by exponential amounts. So you want to make sure that you're focusing on portion control with your meat, and then also you want to make sure that you increase the quality of your meat. And then once again, as everything else, as you transition, you start eating that, make sure you're monitoring how it's interacting in your body, right? Like, what are you experiencing? How are you eliminating? And you should be testing the water with all of this. Just test the water. When you come off of a refeed, is a great opportunity to learn how your body likes to function. And then on day 7, you can kind of go into your dairy products, your sweets, and things of that nature. What you might consider more normalized habits and normalized things. So that's how you would break your 30 day. All right. We've hit our hour mark. Thank you all for your participation today. I appreciate you. Hopefully, you guys got as much out of this as I did. And, I look forward to seeing you all again. I think I've got you guys next week, midweek or something like that. So enjoy the rest of the day, the holiday. I guess a lot of you all are probably off work, huh? MLK, that's a national holiday. Y'all are off work. And for those of you in the challenge, keep pushing. This is day 1, right, of the fast. And we look forward to continue to serve you all as we kind of close that out. I think I mentioned this before, but the cookbook is ready, y'all. I'm so bad at like advertising and marketing because I don't want anybody to think I'm pushing stuff. So I've become very bad at just talking about what you guys probably are interested to know. We got the cookbook available. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now if you guys want to pre-order the cookbook. 31 recipes. Some really cool things about the cookbook is I've got the soda recipe in there. And the soda, we only put I think we put 1 soda recipe in there. But what the soda recipe will do is kind of show you what's possible. If you guys are struggling with certain types of foods, I think this cookbook is great for helping you transition from traditional things like, instead of like Coca-Cola or something like that, you can make a natural grapefruit soda that is absolutely delicious. Do not be turned off by any of the ingredients. Don't be turned off by any of the ingredients because sometimes we could look at stuff and be like, I don't know about that. Man, I'm telling you. Anyway, and then once you realize, okay, you can make a soda from grapefruit, which is like one of the easiest ones to make, then you might be like, well, what can I do with some lime juice? You might end up making you a Sprite. You might end up making you a ginger ale. I've done it all. So anyway, this is available. The pre-orders have actually been ordered. So I should be receiving them. Let's see. I think next week I'll be receiving the pre-orders. And I ordered a few extra copies. So if you guys want to get, be one of the first one to grab the cookbook, you'll be able to still get it with the pre-orders. Links in the description. And I think that's all I got for you. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. Peace. I'm out of there.